All right, Cory and myself, Chris Johnston here. We want to talk about smallmouth fishing in the fall. All right, Cory and myself, Chris Johnston here. We're up north. We're talking smallmouth fishing in the fall, one of my favorite time of year to fish.
What these smallmouth tend to do is they group up. And when they group up, the colder it gets, the shallower they get, and then the fish back off again and they go out deep to where they spend the winter.
Early fall, you're gonna get a bit of a mixture. You're gonna get fish out in the summer spots on the rock piles, but they're transitioning up shallow and they're gonna head to island tips, shallow points coming off an island, or if you got a sand flat going into the bank, they're gonna be moving up on that sand close to the bank, but you need to find something different on that sand. So usually it's like a clump of weed on the sand, a rock pile, and that's what those fish are gonna relate to. And as it gets colder in the year and the more fish keep pushing shallow, they're just gonna get more and more fish on those spots.
So in the fall, on more of your reservoir stuff, a lot of those places have shad. And shad in the fall generally like to go to the bank, and typically from what I've seen, the smallmouth follow that. They're gonna go to the bank as well, and you catch them on more of a reaction style bait, I feel like. Jerkbaits, spinnerbaits, chatterbaits, crankbaits, stuff like that. That's what's gonna get your bites, more shad imitating stuff.
But more so up in the northern area where we are right now, I feel like our fish are more keyed in on bottom contact lures. We got a lot of gobies, crayfish, and they're really keying in on those types of baits up here. So work them really slow through these subtle flat points. And it's a little different from the reservoirs, but still the fish group up and they're all heading towards the bank in the fall.
So what we like to do to find these fish is cover water. That's the biggest key, you know, burning the banks, figuring out what these fish are sitting on, whether it be tips of weeds, points of islands, rock humps. So right now we're sitting out here on an offshore spot, trying to locate these fish with some fast moving baits. And
this is kind of an early fall spot right here. They're transitioning into the shallows and we're in about 10 feet of water, so we're just burning crankbaits along this bar. And the fish are actually too tight to the bottom to see them on live scope, so you have to actually catch one. And when you do catch one, you'll see 5-10 fish come up with it.
Yeah, and some of the deep diving crankbaits we use, something along this line. This is when we think the fish are still set up out deep, and we want a crankbait that's gonna run anywhere from 10 to 15 foot. And sometimes it's grinding into the bottom and sometimes it's just off the bottom, and burning it fast as we can, and these fish react to it. That's how you do it right there.
Look at them all with them.
Oh my God, there's 100 of them down there with it. This is what fall fishing's all about right here, just like we were talking about. It ain't a real big one, but
it locates them.
Locates them.
So a couple of the baits we use when you're kind of power fishing, trying to locate these locations, usually 10 feet of water or less, is a bladed jig. I usually like a 1/2 ounce so you can burn it pretty quick. For some reason in the fall, the smallmouth especially love it, and it's great because you can cover a lot of water. You can fish around grass, rock. The biggest smallmouth in the lake seem to eat this bait for some reason in the fall. And it's gonna get the aggressive ones for sure, and sometimes, like I said, the biggest ones. Not exactly the size they're after.
Giant.
Can you make this one look big? Another good bait is a jerkbait. Cover a lot of water, the smallmouth can't resist it, and you'll get them fighting over a jerkbait in the fall. Also a square bill, if there's no grass around, throwing a square bill covering water is a great technique as well.
We'll catch a few of the aggressive ones, and once we do that, then we'll slow down and start to catch these fish on more finessier style baits.
Once you get a bite, that's the key. You might get 1 or 2 off one little area. That's when you want to slow down with a tube presentation, maybe a Ned rig or a drop shot. Slow down and work it really slow.
Ready. So what we got here is just a little swim bait, party minnow here. Nose hooking it. What this does is when you're dragging it along the bottom, that tail's kicking, and these smallmouth can't resist it. We're still out here looking for these things offshore. We just found a little group of them. We can see them on the live scope.
So you can see here, it's a nice flat bottom. We're in about 14 feet of water. And then if I pan over, You see the rise in the bottom over here, and it gets harder. That's a hard spot, it's a rock pile. And here's the bait that they're feeding on the 2D. If you look up here, there's a smallmouth on the bottom, and he's probably gonna go back down, but he just gave us a glimpse and showed us that they're here and they're living there. You can see 4 or 5 on the live scope, which typically with these smallmouth, they're so tight to bottom here in the fall. If you catch one, I bet you'll see 10 or 15 come up with it.
Uh-oh, here he comes.
We're early fall, so these fish, as it gets colder, are only gonna get more aggressive. They're gonna get even fatter.
Another little guy on the drop shot. This is what fall fishing's all about right here. All these are bass. All those are bass right there on the screen.
These fish are grouping up, and if you get 2 or 3 fish there, there's probably 10 or 15. And you just gotta slow down, and when you're fishing slow, change up your presentation.
We're gonna throw little stuff like little tube jigs. A lot of the times in the fall, they sit right on the bottom, and it's hard to see them on the forward facing, so that's where this tube comes in. Any tube is gonna work, any tube's gonna do the job, but you wanna get this thing on the bottom and just shaking it there, and a lot of the times these smallmouth can't resist it. There we go. Beautiful fish. Oh, doubled up.
Double header.
As you can see, I got one. Chris has got a biggin.
Not happy.
That's a nice one.
It's a grown one, just slowing down on a tube. And if we keep casting, we'll probably get 4 or 5 more, and then they'll slow down, and we'll probably have to leave the spot. But what's wrong, Cory? Didn't want to hold your little bass up to mine?
These fish get educated, they're not stupid. When they see all their buddies getting hooked and pulled in the boat, they generally stop biting until you throw a different bait in. If you catch a few on a tube, throw a Ned rig. After they stop biting the Ned rig, you throw a drop shot, and you just keep switching it up, and eventually you'll catch them all.
And I'm sure we'll catch 3 or 4 more here before they shut down. Maybe throw some different baits in that they haven't seen. And then maybe we'll leave it for an hour, come back. We know this group of fish is here, they'll stay, and come back and get 4 or 5 more, just throwing those subtle baits like a tube and a drop shot. It's a good one right here.
That's about it. You know, fishing in the fall is fairly simple. It's just a matter of locating the fish, like we said, and figuring out what stage they're in, whether they're still out deep or if they've moved up shallow. And man, it can be a lot of fun, that's for sure. There's lots of numbers to be had, and that's when you're gonna catch the biggest fish in the whole lake.